This is Ramey. Ramey is a huge Star Wars fan, and I mean huge. He's the XO of the Southern California Garrison, one of the largest in the 501st. Not this 501st. The 501st is a charitable organization with a focus on raising money and attention for nonprofits and events that need a presence from a galaxy far, far away. Corny, I know, but I mean that is what it is. Since Ramey is also in charge of the Galactic Academy, think 501st for people under 18. I thought he would be the perfect person to help us build a Jawa. So let's get rolling. Okay, so what's the process that I'm looking at here in terms of getting started?
This is an existing Jawa that we had built 2 years ago. It was the first Jawa costume that she had. This is Soraya. She's acronet. Go figure, kids, right? So if we go kind of top to bottom and look through all the different parts, we'll go through all of this in detail. The outermost piece on the top is the hood. Simple rectangular hood. We put some stuff in the front to make sure that it holds its shape. The mask, which has the telltale glowing eyes. The robe, simple monk's cloth. Pair of black gloves. Some kind of adornment. In this case, we use these bandoliers that you can get. $50 on Amazon.
Oh, they're pre-made?
These ones are, yeah. And then the boots. And the boots can be either this color or the brown dyed. I like to make them different just because it makes them look a little, it gives a little contrast. We're gonna measure this to fit her. So the easiest way to do that, especially with kids getting them to hold still, is to just have them lay down on it. That's the general shape. All we've gotta do is make the sleeves, come down here, make sure she's got enough room to grow, and it's a simple, number 7 shaped cut and sew on both sides, and you're done. Now we'll put a simple stitch in just to keep it from going too far, otherwise after a few washings it would be way up here.
So this isn't really important to make sure it's super clean or precisely done. It can kind of be messy, right?
In fact, when I dye it, I don't worry about it being blotchy or anything. You want them to look worn out. If it's got more dye here and less dye there, even better. So the one thing to note is with the kids, basically you're looking at her arms here. So she's still got plenty of room on her arms to the edge of the fabric that you're good. For an adult, if I was to lay down there, it'd be a short sleeve shirt on me. So you have to do the sleeves as separate pieces. So an adult needs way more fabric than a kid does. That would mean on mine, there's a seam here on the shoulder because I had to piece in the sleeve from somewhere else on the fabric.
Got it.
But for her, I can just do this straight cut. So I don't do a lot of marking and measuring. I make sure that when I'm cutting it out, it at least kind of goes just a little bit down past her feet. We can trim it all we want later, but we can't make it longer, so it's got to at least be long enough. So I'll cut straight across here. And then for these cuts on the arms, you want it to kind of be like bell-bottom arms. So we'll come down here and I'll make the arms extra baggy. And then again, I'll come down here. And I'll pretty much go all the way to the corner of the fabric for her. Plenty of room for the robe to flow around her, and that way it's never going to be too tight.
So it is important, guys, that you have doubled up on your fabric. So it's folded in half at the top. So when you cut it, basically now it gives them 2 equal lengths that are connected up here at the top. Nice job. Okay, so you're folding what you just cut, so now you can just perfectly match it, right?
Yeah, no such thing as precision on a Jawa. It doesn't have to be perfect. But I at least want it kind of close. The sleeves should be roughly the same, and the angles. We've got our Jawa Snow Angel. We'll just take it over to the sewing machine, sew across here, down here, sew across here, down there, and turn it back inside out, and we're good to go.
That was surprisingly easy.
Yeah. And again, it's nice because you don't need a pattern, you don't need any kind of precision. You don't have to measure it out. You just got to make sure that you've got enough room for it to fit around them, and lots of bagginess where it needs to be, and you're good. So I started at the bottom and I worked my way up the side. I'm approaching the armpit right now. In my experience, this is the first spot that will tear out and it will unravel and you'll see through there eventually. So I make sure that that one's extra tight.
So as with most things, make sure it's done right the first time so you don't have to do it again.
Nothing fancy to it. So now all we have to do is cut a hole in the neck.
When you initially sewed it, I was kind of wondering what happens to that seam. So when you turn it inside out,
disappears.
Yeah, nice.
And with the texture of the fabric, it's almost invisible once it's all done.
You found the middle of the top, cut a slice in it, and then you just cut half out of both sides.
Good. Sleeves are right where we want them to be. Sometimes if you have enough wiggle room, it's nice to cut that and let that fray like the bottom, but it's also rough enough that it's clean, it looks fine. And this is what we want. It's plenty long. When it's all done, we'll put our boots on her, and then we'll trim it at the last minute so that it just touches the ground.
So Ramy, who just showed up?
Partner in crime with all these Jawas is Nick and Kristen Snavely here, so.
Okay, so now that we have a lot more Jawas that just showed up, we're gonna do kind of a color comparison to show you guys that it really doesn't matter what color brown your Jawa turns out to be, because there's a lot of variation. So we've got the United Nations of Jawas right here.
Exactly. As you can see, like this is freshly dyed fabric, this is freshly dyed fabric. This will eventually kind of break down to look like this. They're fairly close together, but they're still different. This has got more red in it, this one's got more gray in it. You don't want them to all look the same. You want them to all be different, and yet they're still all immediately recognizable as Jawas.
They're not clones, right? So they don't all have to look the same.
Nope, and they've all had different experiences, different ages, different weathering, so you want them to all look completely random. What's interesting is both of these, even though they're obviously different, were the same exact mix of dye. So it's not always the same. So for these, we used 1 bottle of cocoa brown and 1 bottle of dark brown. You can see it on my fingers still. And yet they came out completely different. So again, you want that with this, but you just got to remember that there's no such thing as precision when it comes to this stuff.
Yeah.
The cocoa took over.
Well, I did mine in the front. I did mine in the front yard at 11 o'clock last night. So it was cold out there, so that could be why.
So before you wash this, what's something that needs to happen?
So the salvage ends of the fabric are already finished off, so they won't unravel. But on your cut end, if you take literally 2 minutes to run a zigzag stitch down the edge, it'll keep it from unraveling, getting all over your washing machine. So it doesn't take a lot of time, and it makes a lot of difference.
So far we've got our nice clean Jawa robe, but now we need to go outside and weather it, and you can do this any way you want. All right, so the anatomy of the hood. So it's pretty much just a rectangle. As we showed earlier, you can kind of give it that peaked look by just giving it a bit of a swoop in the back. In this case, I've got some fabric pre-cut. It's extra big. We'll trim it down. What you have is the monk's cloth on the outside, which matches the robe. Black fabric of whatever kind on the inside. In this case, I've got this linen that I was able to get inexpensive. I like the linen because it's nice and soft, and it gives it a little bit of a rustic look from day one. But you can get broadcloth, which is what this one was, which is like $1 a yard. It's nothing. So, and then to give it that shape in the front, because you want that sort of rounded, that round shape, we put corset boning into the front. So it comes in different sizes and colors and versions. I like this one because you can sew through it.
And you can just buy that at the same store?
You can buy it at the fabric store. It's a little, you might have to ask them where to get it. It's not always out in the open, but it will always give it that nice round shape. And that gets sewn into the front face of the hood. So in the Rebel Legion and 501st Legions, we have costume standards that measure like the level of accuracy relative to the movies. So the Jawas in the films had these tails that hung off of the front of the hood, and they just throw them around their neck like a scarf. So that's the way that the adult costumes have to be. For the kids, the costume standards aren't nearly as strict. In fact, there aren't any. We do our best to make sure that they look like Jawas. We don't overcomplicate it with those extra tassels, but so you'll see on Nick's, we've just got Velcro or a button, anything will work. So the kids just have that, and it doesn't, then the tassels aren't in the way. But on the adults, you have to have these extra pieces. So, you know, Deadpool's got that little droop on the back of his hood. So it just kind of adds to the animated look of the whole thing.
We're going for character. That makes sense.
Little wizard, like Jawa wizard. I'm just sewing across that seam that we pinned down.
So in here is that ribbing that you
corset boning is in here.
Okay.
And we're just making sure that we've got it sewn in nice. I try and keep the seam nice and clean. It's a Jawa, so it doesn't actually have to be clean, but you know, it's inside the hood. It's kind of the one place that the wearer lives, and so I try and keep it nice in there. So since I'm making a replacement hood for one that was already there, the easiest way to size it is to just use what we already had. So I'm just putting her old hood over top of this one. I'm gonna give it that peak look, so I'm glad I have the extra here, but I'm gonna start here, and I'm just gonna cut up and then give it just a little bit of a curve out to a peak. So, and we turn it inside out specifically because we want this seam, once I sew it, to be inside. So once it's all put back together, the seam will be inside instead of out.
Makes sense. And for reference, this piece looks like it's 14 by 16, maybe?
Yeah, it's, again, no rhyme or reason necessarily. It definitely has to be big enough to fit the wearer's head, the back of their head can come to the back of it. You definitely want a little bit to hang out in the front. Frankly, if it's too big, it's almost harmless because it just drapes down more in the back.
Okay, and if you hear a little bit of screaming in the background, that's because our Jawa models are all hanging out in the other room. So everything's fine here. We're all fine. Situation is normal.
We've got our model here. We want it to stick out like a couple inches in the front. It'll come down here. We've got that. It's plenty big. It's huge on her, but that's okay. So we get the little droopy peak in the back. So I'm just going to bring this. I'm probably going to bring it to within about 1 inch of the boning that we already had there, and we'll have that nice big circle on the front.
Turn around and another Jawa's appeared out of nowhere.
Yeah, they multiply.
Remy, that is a beautiful Jawa hood.
Yep, as you can see, we got the nice round shape in the front. All that's left to do is put a little piece of Velcro or a snap or even a safety pin if you don't have one.
That is a wise Jawa.
So for the gloves, really the only requirement is black gloves, but the other trick is if they put their arms up, you don't want to be able to see skin. In this case, got a pair of dollar black little mittens. These would work fine. For the kids, there's no rules, but for an adult, you would need to wear some kind of black long sleeve shirt to cover your arms up. The other thing that you can do is get these opera gloves. If you do that, you almost don't have to have anything underneath because that will cover up your arm. Even if you put your arms up, you'll still see the black glove. So let's work on the mask next. So the underpinnings of the mask, and this one's a bit of a mess, but we start with a hockey mask. And in this case, we opened it up because it does get stuffy inside there. So we line the back of the eye openings with this black mesh so that you can't see their eyes through there from the front. Right now you might be able to see through it, but when it's on their head and the foot covering it up, you can't really see any of that. So the way that we do all of this is, got a hockey mask. The eyes end up getting mounted just below the wearer's real eyes. So we'll drill a hole here and we'll put this through. And these are these truck trailer lights. They're supposed to run off of 12 volts, but I run them off of 9-volt batteries and they work just fine. The electrical ends up being, you know, simple. We're just gonna connect these leads to a 9-volt battery clip. What's nice about these masks is they've got these slits in the side, so you can put these clips right there, and the 9-volt battery will just snap right in and it holds it all together. So these ones are perfect because they fit right over that rubber grommet on the eye. And we'll scuff the inside of this up with some sandpaper so that it kind of mucks up the details so that you can't really see that there's a light in there. And once that's inserted on there and we glue it all together, that will give us that kind of nondescript glow that the eye has. We've prepped the mask. All we've done is we've cut out the mouth just to give them a little extra breathing room, and we cut holes for the light. It doesn't have to be pretty because you'll clean it all up with hot glue.
Okay, so the light goes through that hole.
So the light goes through the hole, fits perfectly. I just happen to have a bit for my Dremel that fits that, go figure. And then this fits over the eye, and there you've got your Jawa eye. And it just fits right in. We just use hot glue to clean it all up. Okay, so the next part of this can be as complicated or easy as you want. We're gonna put the lights in there, but we need to get the battery connectors attached to the end of the lights. So on this one, you know, I start off with, I actually solder the connections and heat shrink it so it's nice and clean. You definitely don't want any kind of open wires. But if soldering is kind of too much for you or something that you're not comfortable doing, you can see I've fixed this one so many times on the spot. So I've got electrical tape here, that's fine. I've even got hot glue and I just make sure that the contacts are completely covered up. So, you know, it can be, like I said, as complicated or as easy as you want it to be. So I hot glued in the LEDs. I put the pill capsules on the front, hot glued those. You can see one of the things we did was we scuffed up the inside of the pill capsule with sandpaper just so that you can't see any detail there. So now I'm just going to take these little battery clips that we get. They fit right here on the side of the mask. If we did this right, we clip this on and we have an eye. So the next thing we're going to do is we've got to cut a little piece of the fake fur. And what we usually do is we make it a little extra, that way we can tack it down to this elastic strap. It holds it all into place, but then we also leave like this bib, and then we just tuck it into the front of the robe, so that just gets tucked down into the front, and that way it's fur from here all the way back, and you never see their head. So you want this extra bit hanging down on the bottom. There's an eye, there's an eye, there's an eye, there's an eye. So now I know where my holes need to be. I just open up a little hole, smaller than it needs to be, and then it'll stretch around the bulb.
So this is the science of approximation, yeah?
Yeah, as you can see, no measuring here, I'm eyeballing it. The fabric will stretch just a little bit and it'll make it around that little bulb.
Wait, did you say you're eyeballing it?
Again, they don't have to be perfect. These are for the actual human eyes to look through, but then these are a little farther apart, as you can see, for the lights. So if we flip this over and lay it down, we can just poke this around and the eye holes line up here. We've got that showing through. And that's the foundation of the mask. We'll just hot glue this from the fabric to the mask. And then I like to take on the sewing machine and put a little stitch here on the elastic strap to the top and the sides so that it kind of holds it around and you don't see the edges anywhere.
That was way easier than I thought it was gonna be.
Yeah, none of this is complicated. There's a couple different ways that you can actually do the faces. We like to do the fur for the kids. It's easy. You saw how fast we put it together. I did this like mummy wrap, which is also allowable, especially on the adult costumes. So it's just, it gives it a different look. I used the same linen that the inside of the hood is lined with and just wrapped it like a mummy. Instead of the hockey mask, this is built on a paintball helmet. So mine's a full helmet that I can actually put on. And it's got plenty of ventilation in the back, holds it away, the hood away from my head, gives it some extra structure.
Gives it an actual face shape too. It's the beauty with this stuff is though there's no science involved.
I kind of like this tread, so I'm not going to worry about getting too close to the ground level. Sometimes if the tread, like on the other boots, is pink or blue, then I'll put a little extra fabric down here and let it have a skirt around there, but this looks good. So I'm just going to start gluing this on and work my way around. They will get weathered on their own after a while, just from being worn, especially if you let them go in the dirt and whatever. But we're gonna at least get them started off. So we're gonna tea dye them. So what I've got is some warm water here with a few tea bags in it. And I'm literally just gonna grab these tea bags and then just kind of flick the tea drops onto the boots. And we'll just keep doing this until you get kind of a natural amount of weathering on there. And after they're worn a couple times, all of this will start to blend together and you won't even notice that it was individual droplets. It'll just be shades of dirt. All right, so accessories. We talked about the bandolier earlier. That's kind of a staple, right? So that just wears across chest and at an angle like that. You could do one, you can do two. My one daughter likes to wear two with a belt on top of it. So this is the belt that she wears. And she'll put these pop pouches in the back, have it kind of like that. We've even got a holster that will hold this gun that hangs from it. The holster actually for this gun, it is a cordless drill holster that we got at Home Depot. And we just roughed it up and attach it to here and it holds the gun on there. So this is sort of our classic Jawa blaster. It started out its life as a Pirates of the Caribbean gun. From Disneyland. Now these are getting a little harder to find now since they don't make the guns anymore, but if you can get one off of eBay, it's a perfect base because it's got the right shape, this musket looking shape, and we just add this little block of wood or whatever down here, piece of pipe at the end, and it makes that sort of standard Jawa looking gun, and it even still has sound effects from the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. It started out its life as a Nerf shotgun, a generic Nerf shotgun frankly. We cut off the barrel, used the scope actually, and then mounted this weird cone on the front of it to give it that big kind of elephant gun look. Other things you can do is a walking stick. For mine, I use this walking stick and I hunch over because I'm so tall, and so I'll walk around like an old man with this. And the other thing you can do is you can take like an adult t-shirt, a plain white t-shirt, tea dye it the same way that we tea dyed the boots, and cut the sleeves off of it and cut a slit down the front, and you've got a vest. And then that lighter vest can go over the Jawa robe and it gives it more of a look. So you can customize the Jawas and make them all look different. We've got, between my kids, Nick kids, the other Jawas, we've got like 8-10 Jawas and they all have something different. One of them has a baby that she carries around. The other one has all the guns and packs. The other one with the vest, they've all got something unique. so that's it. We've gone from a pile of fabric to a fully done Jawa in really a few hours. The whole thing costs, if you include the price of the bandolier, which is probably the most expensive piece, which is about $50, the whole thing can be done for about $100 end to end. So we've got our boots, the robe, the gloves, the bandolier, the mask, the hood, which is all done.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Nice, great job. Thanks for doing this. That was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Cool. Bye.